Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. As most of you know, we've been absent for a couple of weeks because we were having our Kartik Parikrama here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and it's finished yesterday. So we're back with you again. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love after a short break. And this will be part 101. And today we'll continue speaking about the third of Krishna's qualities that distinguish him from Lord Narayan. And that is, quote, he can attract living entities from all over the universe by playing on his flute. Number 3. Now, in his book, Vidagdha Madhava, Srila Rupa Goswami describes exactly how Krishna's flute playing affects living entities in various ways. It's interesting. He writes, the sound vibration created by the flute of Krishna wonderfully stopped Lord Shiva from playing his dindima drum. And the same flute has caused great sages, like the 4 Kumaras, to become disturbed in their meditation. It has caused Lord Brahma, who was sitting on the lotus flower for the creative function, to become astonished. And Anantadev, who was calmly holding all the planets on his hood, was moving in this way and that due to the transcendental vibration from Krishna's flute, which penetrated through the covering of this universe and reached to the spiritual sky. So again, that's really interesting. By the mercy of Rupa Goswami, we learn not only that Krishna's flute attracts all living entities in the universe, but how it affects them individually as well. All by the grace of Rupa Goswami. But what's just as amazing is that Kavi Karnapura, in his Ananda Vrindavan Champu, chapter 6, verses 13 and 14, reveals how Krishna's flute playing in the spiritual world, because we heard about the material universe, he reveals how Krishna's flute playing in the spiritual world, specifically in Goloka Vrindavan, affects the living entities who are there, the Nitya Siddhas. He writes, when the creatures in Vrindavan forest drank the nectar of the sound of Lord Krishna's flute, their natures became radically altered, and they became filled with the symptoms of ecstatic love. That's the theme of our series, the symptoms of ecstatic love. When the sound of Lord Krishna's flute was heard in Vrindavan forest, the stationary trees and plants began to tremble in ecstasy. The moving creatures became stunned and motionless. The flowers all turned white, perspired, and cried tears of honey. The birds became choked up and could not sing, and the grass and creepers stood erect in transcendental bliss. Wow. And in Ananda Vrindavan Champu, chapter 13, verses 31 and 32, he continues. He writes, a female parrot said, Lord Hari's companion, the flute, causes havoc in this forest. The flute stuns the flowing streams, attracts the entire atmosphere, enchants all living entities with its spell, and forces the women of Vrindavan to transgress the codes of religion. When he goes on, a male parrot said, who can describe the glories of Lord Krishna's flute? By showering the nectar of its music upon the hearts of the women, this flute washes away the mud of love for any other man and uncovers the heart's natural love for Krishna. And in Ananda Vrindavan Champu, chapter 19, verse 72, he writes, the sound of Lord Krishna's flute aroused amorous desires in the moon-faced Braja gopis, who had beautiful teeth. They began to stutter, and their garments became loosened. Without a trace of remorse or second thought, they all at once left their homes. Such is the vibration of Krishna's flute in the spiritual sky, especially in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So it's quite obvious that Krishna's flute has an even more powerful effect upon the residents of Vrindavan more than anywhere else in the material and the spiritual creations. This is because, there's a reason for this is because Vrindavan is the topmost spiritual place in all the creations, where spiritual emotions are at their highest. This is Braj. Spiritual emotions are at their highest. That is explained actually by the great devotee Srinath Chakravarti, who quotes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the opening verse of his Chaitanya Mata Manjusa. Chaitanya Mata Manjusa. He writes, famous verse, Aratyo Bhagavan Bhajesa Tanyas Tat Nama Vrindavanam. The most worshipable form of the Lord is Sri Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, and Vrindavan is the topmost worshipable abode. And amongst those who live there, as we know, the cowherd girls, the milkmaids, the gopis of Vrindavan, are the topmost devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:44-15 states, the ladies of Braj are the most fortunate of women because with their minds fully attached to Krishna and their throats always choked up with tears, they constantly sing about him while milking the cows, winnowing grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, riding on swings, taking care of their crying babies, sprinkling the ground with water, cleansing their houses, and so on. By their exalted Krishna consciousness, they automatically acquire all desirable things, such as the science of Krishna consciousness. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:44-16 states, when the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute as he leaves Vrindavan in the morning with his cows or returns with them at sunset, the young girls quickly come out of their homes to see him. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. And those sidelong glances. As he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. But I was reading, nevertheless, such sidelong glances, or it's described quick glances of Krishna, it's described were not sufficient to satisfy the gopis' attraction to him. Thus they lived constantly in feelings of separation. And him from them, the gopis. In his Gopal Champu Purva, chapter 17, our beloved Jiva Goswami writes, one day Radha and Krishna wrote on new leaves about the depths of their feelings of separation from each other. And the winds of the autumn season brought Sri Radha's leaf to Krishna and Krishna's leaf to Radha. And Sri Radha had written, it's very poetic, the lightning bolts who have the clouds as their very life are very pious, for they are never seen without their dark clouds. But I am unfortunate because I am always seen without the dark cloud Krishna. And Krishna had written, the moon has given up its cloudy shelter, and the swan and the blue lotus are beautifully decorating the lake. But thinking of Vrindavan, my mind doesn't take pleasure in these things. Fie on providence. Fie on providence. Meaning, Krishna is saying that, very poetically, that Vrindavan's looking very nice, but nevertheless, without his Radha, it's not so appealing to him. And Jiva Goswami writes that after reading Krishna's leaf message, she wrote on the leaf, Radharani embraced the leaf, made a pendant out of it, and wore it always around her neck. Wow. So in these ways, and more, we can understand that, due to social customs, boys and girls didn't mix freely in Vrindavan. And so the gopis of Vrindavan were often feeling separation from Krishna, even when he was there. Even when he was there. And realizing this, Srila Jiva Goswami writes, Krishna eventually started playing his flute in a unique way to satisfy them. And because the sound of the flute was coming directly to his lips from his heart, he says, the desire of the gopis to have the personal association of Krishna was satisfied. Wow. However, Jiva Goswami also points out that amongst the gopis who had particularly intense feelings of love for Krishna, those gopis remained distressed. Some of them had this they were in particular distress in separation, and they remained so, even though the flute was playing. And amongst them, Sri Radha was the most distressed. And therefore she expressed, it's described her transcendental jealousy towards the flute with the following words. Krishna's flute is extremely pious, for even though it is not of feminine gender, it is able to give up all shyness and drink the nectar flowing from Krishna's lips, which in fact belong to us gopis. The flute is never satisfied by this nectar, and when it has become overfed on it, the flute emits sounds that cause the rivers to swell up with joy and the trees to shed tears in the form of dripping honey. And then Radharani thought within herself as follows. O shark earrings, you kiss his cheeks regularly. O flute, you relish his lip nectar. O garland of forest flowers, just see, even these ordinary jewels do not give up the body of Hari. Let's recite that again. This is Radharani's thinking. O shark earrings, you kiss his cheeks regularly. O flute, you relish his lip nectar. O garland of forest flowers, just see, even these ordinary jewels do not give up the body of Sri Hari. Hare Krishna. At this point, I'd like to share with you a poem written by a medieval poet named Kanai Kontia, who I discovered was the head priest of the Jagannath temple in Puri at one point, and a very intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, he's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I found his name in Madhya Lila 1519 and 1529. And this poem, or song, you could say, is technically categorized as Akshay Panuraga. Akshay Panuraga. This means literally expressing deep attraction through one's complaints. Wow, how detailed is the science of Krishna consciousness. Akshay Panuraga, expressing deep attraction through one's complaints. So in this song, Sri Radha indirectly expresses her deep attachment to the sounds of the flute by complaining to the flute itself. Sri Radhika says in a complaining mood, O Vamsi flute of the mind stealer Krishna, please play very softly. Your loud, rapturous sounds make us cowherd girls extremely distressed. O Vamsi flute, you have now become a lady of our family lineage, residing in a society of respectable elderly people. So we warn you not to make any sounds when you are placed on the lips of that ruffian Krishna. That ruffian Krishna. Please listen to us and give us a promise of remaining completely speechless at all times. Please do not slaughter us, helpless ladies. Please do not slaughter us, helpless ladies. Very deep. A devotee scholar notes here that the term for flute Vamsi is feminine in gender. Since the lady named Vamsi is now in constant association of Krishna, Sri Radha says that she has become like a woman in the cowherd family lineage, residing in a society of respectable elderly cowherds such as Nanda and Upananda. Thus, she should learn to behave properly and stop making such captivating sweet sounds that cause the cowherd girls to behave in a manner not acceptable for the society, and thus ruining their reputations, which is worse than killing them. He paraphrases there. Now, Sri Radha continues. Whatever family traditions and rules of modesty I had have all flown away to the other side of the Jamuna now, where the dark ruffian plays upon you. The only thing I can say to you now, O flute, as I walk down the path of the Jamuna, is that I do not know if, after hearing your sweet sounding songs, these shameless life airs of mine will stay in my body or not. After hearing your sweet sounding songs, O flute, these shameless life airs of mine will stay in my body or not. Then she concludes, O Vamsi, your birth is in the rough village bush named Tarala. Your birth is in the rough village bush named Tarala. It actually means tulda bamboo, I found out, tulda bamboo. Whereas my heart is soft and simple. This simple heart of mine is now being thrashed to pieces in the hands of an uncouth, rough village dweller like you, O flute. So the poet, Kanai Kuntiya, who's composed this poem or song, he writes, my mind now understands clearly that this flute has come into existence simply to do away with innocent and helpless cowherd girls. Thank you, poet. Now, in the following pastime, a very beautiful pastime, Srimati Radharani will get her revenge on her competitor, the flute, in a very humorous way. And that pastime is as follows. One time, Srimati Radharani left the rasa dance, and Krishna, noticing this, also left the rasa dance looking for her. We've discussed this. But in this particular rasa dance, he wandered through all the kunjas around Govardhan Hill, calling out Radharani's name, until finally, somewhere near Jatipur, he found Radharani in a kunja with Lalita and Vishaka and some other gopis. But when Krishna came up to Radharani, seeing her, she turned her face away and said to Lalita, tell this rascal boy to go away. So Krishna bowed his head, and with tears in his eyes, he left that place and went to another kunja nearby, where he laid down and went to sleep, apparently. So then Sri Radha, smiling, told some of her friends to find out where Krishna went and report back to her. So eventually her friends found Krishna laying down sleeping in this other kunja with his crown off and his flute under his hand. So when the girls came back and told this to Radharani, naturally all the gopis, Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Rati Manjari, all of them got the same idea at the same time. It was all Purnamasi's workings. They all thought together, no one is guarding Krishna. He's asleep and he's alone in the kunja. This is the perfect opportunity to steal Krishna's vamsi, his flute. So they all got together and very silently they snuck into the kunja where Krishna was, finding him sleeping. Actually, he wasn't sleeping. He was pretending to sleep. So the gopis started discussing how they were going to steal his flute. So Lalita says, this flute can only be stolen by someone who is very clever, very quick, and very fast. And immediately, simultaneously, all the girls turned around and looked at Sri Radha. Vrindavan Srimati Radharani ki jai. So Radharani smiled because here was an opportunity to associate with her beloved, first of all, and to get back to get revenge on him. So she tied up her sari like pants, tied a cloth around her bangles and ankle bells so they wouldn't make any noise, and snuck up very slowly and very quietly to where Krishna was. And she moved very carefully, very deliberately on the ground, one step at a time, making sure that Krishna didn't wake up. Finally, she got to where Krishna was and carefully reached out and grabbed his flute. Then she jumped up and ran, it's described like the wind, while all the other gopis giggled and laughed. Of course, they didn't see, but as soon as the flute was gone, a big smile came on Krishna's face. So after some time, Krishna came back to the first kunja, where the gopis were, and he called out, "Hey, do any of you girls know where my flute is? Do any of you have my flute?" And they all looked at him like, "What do you mean, do we have your flute?" And Lalita said sarcastically, "Just see, first you offend Radharani, and now you accuse some of her friends of thievery. You rascal boy." So at this point, Krishna came forward and started personally searching the gopis for his flute. They were saying, "Don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me." And Krishna said, "I'm looking for my flute." So at this point, the gopis started secretly handing the flute, one after another, to each other, one to one to one to one. So he couldn't find it. And one of the gopis handed the flute to Sri Radha, finally, right in front of Krishna. Right in front of Krishna, he handed the flute. So Sri Radha just stood there smiling with Krishna's flute in hand. Now because she's the chief of all the gopis, Krishna couldn't just go up and start roughing her up, looking for his flute. So to the joy of all the gopis present, and the joy of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, past, present, and future, Krishna knelt down in front of Srimati Radharani, took her hand, and begged her to give his flute back. He begged her, "Please give my flute back." In essence, this shows the power of pure, unadulterated love for Krishna, Braja Bhakti. It is so powerful, it can control the all-powerful Lord. Or we can say, Krishna allows himself to be controlled by the love of his devotees. That's important. He allows himself to be controlled by the love of his devotees. So this is the intimate, sweet love of Vrindavan, which cannot be found even in Vaikuntha, the official kingdom of God, only in Braj. Hare Krishna. Actually, she gave the flute back. So let us finish today with the verse from Sri Rupa Goswami in his Lalita Madhava 10:38, where the gopis are speaking. It's so sweet. "Dear Krishna, the fragrance of the mellows of your pastimes is spread throughout the forests of the glorious land of Vrindavan, which is surrounded by the sweetness of the district of Mathura. In the congenial atmosphere of that wonderful land, you enjoy your pastimes, with your flute dancing on your lips, and surrounded by us, the gopis, whose hearts are always enchanted by unpredictable, ecstatic emotions." Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, Prabhus. We're back on course. We did take a break for a couple of sessions because we had a very ecstatic Kartik Purikama here with about 350 devotees. Perhaps you've seen some of the videos or seen the photos on my Facebook page, but it was ecstatic. So I'll go back to my library behind me and we'll continue with these discussions next Friday. Thank you so much. Glory to Shridhar Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shamba Sundar ki, Vrindavan Eshwari, Srimati Radharani ki, Krishna's flute ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe.